I long for that feeling. Why did it have to go away?
So we're kicking off a new series called Experimenting in Our Twenties to try new things, document our process, and see if any of it actually has a positive impact in our lives. And we're starting off with a week of mindfulness. We found ourselves wondering, what would it look like if we were to be super intentional about being mindful in our day-to-day? Would it actually make a difference?
One research study at Yale, it was talking about how people's natural state of mind is prone to restlessness, and they call this mind wandering, which means that you're ruminating and just worrying about the present and the future. The study actually showed mindfulness and meditation could quiet down a lot of these thoughts, which would lead to less anxiety, less stress, and ultimately just make you a more happier human being.
Amy and I are going to try to commit 1 hour per day for the next week to being mindful, whatever activity where we are just fully in the present, in the moment, whether that's yoga, meditation, journaling, yada yada. So let's see how we do. So for my first hour, I got out my mat and turned on a Yoga with Adriene video. I was doing this over my lunch break at work, and my mind was pretty scattered and I was feeling pretty lethargic. And as I was getting into it, I heard that dreaded noise, getting pings from Slack, and I realized I totally forgot to turn off my notifications. And I ended up finishing the video, but I couldn't really enjoy myself. I ended up responding, it was super quick, but it pretty much like broke my zen. And again, I had that hour, right? So I was like, let me fill it up by journaling. But to be honest, my mind was elsewhere the entire time. I think I wrote like 3 lines. I ended up just cutting it short. So I think my takeaway here is that technology makes us infinitely reachable. So it's on us to create those digital boundaries and really curate that environment that would help us be more mindful, because it takes effort and it's definitely not my default state. I told myself I'll do better the next day.
Man, so I'm not sure if it's because I've never done anything like this where I tried to be mindful consistently and intentionally, but this hour was really hard. The first time I tried to be mindful, I did some yoga because I had been watching all those inspirational yoga videos, so I figured why not? Doing the video made the time go by a lot easier, but found myself constantly like checking Slack, like checking my emails, and I think there's something to be said still of working from home where it's just a lot harder to unplug from work because it feels like I'm at work when I'm at home. I just had a really hard time immersing myself in the experience. It was still a little bit anxiety inducing because I felt like I should be working and not spending my time trying to be still and trying to be mindful.
So I subscribed to James Clear's newsletter, and there was a quote that made me think about like, why are we doing this week of mindfulness thing? And he says, one of the best secrets of a happy life is the art of extracting comfort and sweetness from every circumstance. If happiness is not found now, where we are, and as we are, there is little chance of it ever being found. If we are to cultivate the art of living, we should cultivate the art of extracting sweetness and comfort out of everything, as the bee goes from flower to flower in search of honey. And I thought that was so good. If you want to find peace, find happiness, find clarity, it's not always something you should defer to later. If you can't find it now in any circumstance in the present, how can it be guaranteed in the future?
But he is not promising an easy ride. Instead, he seems to be saying, follow me, and I promise it will be tough.
I'm meditating, right? And it's hard because I think when I do yoga, there's like a specific time frame that the video lasts that I can count for and I'm being active. But I notice that like when I'm sitting and trying to meditate, it's really difficult because time just feels so slow and I start to feel really restless that like I'm not doing anything. And it's one of those things that are like hard to understand because it's like, well, what is really being? And what does it mean to like live in the present? So I saw this quote that really helped me materialize what this really means, like being. you can't enjoy a sunset and think about enjoying a sunset at the same time. The good part is the experience, not the reflection of the experience. So when I'm doing a meditation, what the moment is calling for is that I just do it and I'm there. It's kind of silly, like obviously we're physically there, but it made me think like, how many moments am I experiencing that I'm not fully present for? Like I'm just there in body, but not there in mind, emotion, and really lacking that like full connection.
I was on my way to go see a friend, and it was kind of like a long drive, like over an hour. And usually I put on a book or a podcast, but I couldn't listen to it. Like I was feeling so anxious. I had just like so much on my mind and had to make a lot of big decisions for work and like other things. So I ended up turning on the voice memo app on my phone and recorded my thought process. I played that recording back to me. And that was kind of really interesting. I was able to hear myself as if I was a different person and see things like really objectively. I think for me that helped gain a lot of clarity because I always want to make sure that whatever I do, I have a strong sense of like what do I want and what do I think before I let other people's opinions like sway me too much. I feel a little bit more at peace with myself. And had I not done that, I would have probably just like suppressed my anxiety, just distracted myself. Today was a good one.
All that to say, the hour of mindfulness was so hard. We wanted to do a week and it actually extended into like a month study because I just like cannot do it every day for a week. I really saw that I didn't sweat the little things, you know, when I did do my hour of mindfulness, and it made me a lot more big picture. And as someone who's very detail oriented, it was a bigger transformation for me to be able to step out of where I was, a little like image of the ghost kind of leaving your body and being able to see things all for what they are instead of this like one specific thing that I'm looking at and stressing about.
I think the takeaway for me was that I felt a little bit more in tune with myself. So for example, whenever I would feel a certain emotion, especially if it was uncomfortable, I think I would usually be very quick to numb it out or drown it with any kind of like low-level stimulation, whether that's like a show or a podcast or anything like that. But I think I was more willing to just sit in it and experience it. And I realized once I did that, it usually passes and I feel better afterwards. Thanks again for watching and tune in for our next experiment. See you next time.